Welcome in to lesson 10 of East Main 101. I am your facilitator, City of Jackson Communications Director Kenneth Cummings, and for today's lesson, we have Lauren Kirk, the Lauren Kirk. Welcome, the Lauren Kirk.
Thank you, the Kenneth Cummings.
My most necessary coworker here in the City of Jackson. There's a story behind that. We'll get into it at some point. Maybe, we'll see. Lauren Kirk is here. She is our Chief Innovation Officer for the City of Jackson. So, welcome, Lauren. Appreciate you being on. I'm going to read a quick bio about Lauren Kirk. Lauren currently serves as the first Chief Innovation Officer for the City of Jackson, Tennessee. In this role, she is responsible for managing the mayor's innovation team and various initiatives to improve the quality of life for all Jacksonians. Prior to working for the City of Jackson, Lauren worked in the nonprofit sector in Memphis, Tennessee, serving with historic Claiborne Temple, in Building Memphis, BLDG Memphis, and city leadership. In addition to her role at the city, Lauren remains actively involved with various nonprofits in her community, including serving as the former board president for Habitat for Humanity Jackson. Lauren is a graduate of the 2019 class of Leadership Jackson and the 2021 class of the Delta Regional Authority's Executive Leadership Academy. With a Regional Innovator Graduate Certificate, she is also a 2023 graduate of Leadership Tennessee's NEXT program. Lauren was recognized with a Sterling Award in 2024 as one of the 20 most influential women in West Tennessee. Lauren is a proud first-generation college graduate. She received her Master of City and Regional Planning and Master of Social Work degrees from University of Memphis, where she was also a Housing and Community Development Fellow. She also holds a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Union University. She enjoys living in Midtown with her dog, Jack. And when she is not out serving the city, you can usually find her exploring trails or rivers. Lauren Kirk, the Lauren Kirk, yes, the Lauren Kirk. Welcome into East Main 101, lesson 10. You told us 10 is your angel number, lucky number?
Lucky number, yeah.
Lucky number 10. Thank you for being on, Lauren. I am excited to talk to you because, for one, our work relationship, goes back almost 5 years. 2019, you started in July, came in August. We have been through it all of here.
That's right.
And I mean, from the joys and the tears and the ups and the downs, it's been a ride. And I'm finally able to bring you on and showcase you and what you do, your role with the city. Thank you again for being on, Lauren. So we're going to get into this thing. 5 years. We've seen it all. And your bio reads that you were in social work. You got your master's in social work. And others in the city, I've talked with Chrissy Davis. She's also got her background in social work. And there are others in the city who have that background. So how to you does social work go hand in hand with city government?
Man, Kenny, I love we're having this conversation today because I'm always saying that I want to see more social workers in government. So when I took this role 5 years ago, which, like you said, it feels like 10 almost with the pandemic and everything, I initially thought I'd be using my planning degree more. And I've been thankful to use that some this past year with our master planning initiatives and things like that. But really, I think every day in my work, I lean on the social work degree more because it's all about understanding people, advocating for people, bringing people together. And I think that when we think about social workers, you often think about them as case managers, kind of more on the micro side. But really, the field of social work started in the macro side with the Whole House movement with Jane Addams in Chicago. And so that's kind of the social work that I practice day to day is bringing resources together, thinking about the whole person, the whole neighborhood, the whole system, rather than just an individual issue. Mm-hmm. So I've been grateful to practice that in local government. Proud to see more social workers, like you mentioned, Christy. We got Claire, we got Hope and Haley, and always wanting to bring some more on the team too.
And the question was asked me in one of our lessons, when I hear social work, what do I think? And of course, the first thing that I thought before I learned more about social work is you work with kids. That's what I thought social work was. But it truly does go hand in hand with city government. We're not trying to do everything, but we're, I guess, trying to find the resources to help those who are in need, and even those who just, not necessarily in need, but those who just want to understand more about how to help. And just like you said, the improving the quality of life for everyone here in the city. So you said you had a degree in like planning. What was the trigger that made you realize that social work side of it was more important to the city versus the planning side?
I think honestly, it's just learning through practice as I got into the work, which at first we did not know what it would look like. Coming in was a new administration. The former mayor had been here for so long and trying to figure things out. And then 6 months in, we have a global pandemic that hits. And so really then the whole country shakes, the whole world shakes up, and the role of government becomes even more vital in a lot of people's eyes as an informer, as a convener, as someone they can trust. And social workers embody that. They embody someone who brings the resources to the table, brings people together to build trust and to meet needs. And so, when I was originally thinking about this role, I thought, city government, you take care of streets, you take care of trash, police, fire, all those things. And we do that, and we try to do that really well. But more than just the physical infrastructure, and this is what I've been trying to emphasize here lately, is the social infrastructure is just as important. Because if a city doesn't have that in place, if we're not taking care of our most vulnerable, then we're going to fall apart. We only rise as strong as our weakest link. And so that's why a social work mindset is so important, because you're not just thinking about one thing, but you're thinking about the whole system.
And your bio also means you had a bachelor's of science in psychology. The moments that we've had in your office of just, Lauren, please just listen to me for a second. Let me vent. How does that help you in this role that you're in, having that background in psychology?
So I do joke that sometimes I'm the city hall therapist. Just come in and sit on my couch. We'll talk it out. I've threatened to pull out my DSM a few times in a few council meetings, but all jokes aside, I think having that background of understanding socio-emotional functioning, what motivates people, what's not just in the head, but also in the heart, helps you be more effective in your work. It helps you to see a constituent as not somebody who's just yelling at me on the phone, but somebody who has been a victim of a system that it's hard for them to now trust government. And so they need to rebuild that trust somehow. And they need someone that's going to listen with empathy and not with defensiveness. So things like that, just being able to connect with people and understand that it always goes deeper than what's presented on the surface.
And we'll get into some of the initiatives later, but I remember one of the first things, if I can think back past the pandemic, it's almost like, gosh, it's been so long, but I remember the bus routes. We were trying to get something related with the bus. So you helped out with that. You helped out with, like I said, we'll get into it later, the homeless. You helped out with a whole lot of initiatives. And you coming from, I guess you started out kind of in Memphis in the nonprofit sector. That's home. I'll always be home. It's now a place to visit, lay my head to go visit family. But coming from Memphis, where it's a whole lot more. It's a larger city, of course, more people, populations, more than Jackson. But did that kind of give you a leg up in coming to Jackson, smaller? We're not a small city, but smaller than compared to Memphis. Did that kind of give you a hand up on how to maneuver here in Jackson?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think my time in Memphis, as we've talked about before, both have a special connection to Memphis. I mean, it will always be the city of my heart, the hometown of my heart. And I lived there and worked there at a pivotal time in my own personal journey and growth and early on in my career. And I'm so thankful that that's where my career got to start, because I was able to see and do a whole lot of things that people don't always get the opportunity to do so early in their career. But one thing that I love about Memphis, and I say this, and I know that the city, I mean, we're not immune to it. We battle our stereotypes, but Memphis doesn't hide its scars. And so I think...
Not at all.
And I think that, Memphis is really aware Leaders in Memphis are really aware of the problems, aware of the history that's there, and they don't shy away from it. They work to address it, and that, I think, has helped me as going back to your question, when I think about Jackson. My earlier experience in Jackson, I'll be honest, I feel like I operated in a bubble a little bit. I was at school at Union. I'd stayed up north, maybe come down for the downtown farmers market. So coming back here, one of the things that my partner at the time that was from Jackson made sure I did was to drive around each part of the city and to get a fuller perspective of who Jackson is, what Jackson's about, how different neighborhoods have different lived experiences. And I think that's something that Memphis really taught me, because Memphis has a lot of neighborhood identity. And so I was grateful to bring that perspective, even though it is a bigger city with its different challenges, there's still some commonalities. To be able to bring that here and think about the city as a whole.
And not just scars in Memphis. Memphis has some deep cuts that are still healing and will probably continue to heal. And you being in that nonprofit sector in Memphis, you were a part of some of the healing. Like I said, the healing is continuous. And coming into the city of Jackson in 2019, well, not necessarily working for the city of Jackson in 2019, you could see prior to that Jackson had some scars. And to be a part of that, how is that? I know how I feel as far as communications director of the city, coming into my role, being able to give the information out to the people, opening that door for those to see that the city hears them and sees them. For you in this area that you work in, how does that make you feel to be able to help in the healing process of Jackson?
What a question. I think being an aid in the healing process of Jackson, at times it is really hard and exhausting and frustrating, because you look and you see my hands can only touch so much. And to your point, like you said earlier, the wounds are sometimes so deep. And that's what I tell our team all the time is, when you go into neighborhoods, when you meet with residents, when you're trying to serve people, you have to understand that there's a context there for them that spans well beyond your time as a city employee. It goes back decades, probably even further, of investments or disinvestments or decisions that were made by government that now you represent. And so to be an actor in that healing process, you have to shoulder that burden, but also it's incredibly rewarding. I think about a specific story. Maybe 2 summers ago, we were doing a Love Your Block project just off of Gate Street, around the corner from Lane, around the corner from downtown. And we're planting some flowers, painting a porch, and the homeowner came out and just was in tears and shares a story that her son had been a victim of gun violence recently, and she had not wanted to come out of her house. She was just so devastated by grief. And for us to do this simple act of helping fix up her house and give her some plants to tend for, and she's like, I want to give back to my neighborhood now. I'm ready to come back out. And that's just one small story of a much, hopefully, represents a bigger thing. We're helping individuals heal. We're trying to help neighborhoods heal. And it's those stories that make it incredibly rewarding. So I do not take for granted my job every day. I'm grateful to be in this role, even though it is a heavy responsibility. I wouldn't want to do anything else.
That's amazing. And you also mentioned the bubble. Those who have either been in Jackson for a while, or for me, coming in 2010, I know about that bubble. The specific bubble of the one specific one that we all know about, but then there's, a broader bubble of you're in your area of Jackson and you don't go anywhere else. Working for the Jackson Sun, I was able to see a lot of Jackson, but now working for the city, I'm able to see it in a different light. There is that bubble. There's that North Jackson bubble. There's that East Jackson bubble. There's that South Jackson bubble. And then there are micro bubbles that are in specific areas of those areas. You mentioned the bubble that you were in, and someone told you, hey, you need to go look at other parts. What to you is, how important is it to pop that bubble and get out to see other areas in the city?
Oh, it's vitally important. And I think that's one of the strengths of our Neighborhood Academy program. That's what I talk to Claire about all the time. is it brings people together from different bubbles of the city, from different pockets of the city. We strive to have applicants from every single city council district because it's a lot easier in your home, online, when you hardly venture out of your neighborhood to have an opinion about somewhere else in the city. But then when you meet someone from another part of the city, start to hear their story, hear about their experience, your perspective changes. And then together, as you both share your perspectives on the city, you work to make it better. And so I think you can't really understand what someone's been through until you see the neighborhood they grew up with, and to walk their streets, to see the resources that they have or that they don't have. Otherwise, it's just empty opinions.
Right. So in coming from one bubble to the other, your bubble, you might have a lot of the things, and you might think you need that something else that another bubble might. But to be able to come out of yours and see another one, be like, oh, wow, they may need it more than we do, or we have a whole lot more than they do, or coming from another bubble and seeing that, man, I wish we could get that. And being able to just bring it all, as a lot of people say, we're not just North Jackson, we're not East Jackson, we're one Jackson, and we are. Mm-hmm. But of course, there are uniqueness to each of these areas. They have their own identity, but as a whole, and in your role, we know that we need to come together as one city the word is to be equitable. Everybody needs to have the same thing. So in your role in innovation, and you mentioned Neighborhood Academy, which was one of the initiatives, Chief Innovation Officer. People may hear that and wonder, what is that? Because you've had a few other titles, but we're not going to get into that. So I grow up, I'm in a church, and our pastor, he's a word man. He's all about definitions. So I looked up the word innovation and didn't really know that this was the definition of it. The word innovation is defined as something new or different that's introduced. And I wouldn't consider myself like an Einstein level genius, but when we came in 2019 to work for the city, there's a lot of things that happen, and we have seen a lot of new in the almost 5 years that we've been here. Why to you is newness and innovation important for a city?
Oh man, it's vital for a city. Listen, like cities, just like people, are dynamic. They're ever growing, ever changing. We of course can learn from our past and sometimes repeat it for good or for bad. But if you don't innovate, then you die. Really, because innovation tracks with growth. And so, to give you another definition that I keep up in my office, that came from a different nonprofit in Memphis. It says innovation is listening to the needs of your neighbors, and that's what I try to practice every single day. We try to practice innovation in traditional government services, like we talked about earlier, trying to get police, fire, roads, streets, things top tier. But we also try to make sure that we're aware of the ever expanding and changing role of government as it is to meeting the needs of our residents. Like we mentioned, we've introduced the Love Your Block program, Neighborhood Academy, Public Art Initiative, Financial Empowerment Initiatives. So my team, Tyler, Elvia, Abby, Claire, that's more of their day-to-day is how can government step up to the plate for our ever-changing role and meet the needs of our neighbors innovatively.
If you don't innovate, you die. That, again, innovation, something new or different being introduced. We can't stay on this plateau, especially as a city. We have to progress in some kind of way, no matter what that progression is. If it means making public transportation easier for people to do versus having to have exact change, to be able to pay for it on your card or through a debit card or through your phone, through tap to pay. That's innovation. And it's important to have because not everybody has a car. There are people who still rely on public transportation. That's just one of the initiatives. You mentioned a few of them: Neighborhood Academy, Financial Empowerment, Love Your Block. So kind of talk about some of those initiatives, or some of your, they're all your favorite, but talk about just some of those initiatives that we have here in the city.
Yeah, so I'll talk about a few, I guess, earlier in my career before we grew our team, and then we'll expand more into our team's work. But when I started in 2019, when Kenny and I, the OGs, started 5 years ago, the city had a lot of ways that we could advance. Mayor may have talked about this in his podcast, I'm not really sure, but the city at the time was on a DOS-based financial system, which you can't use a mouse for. So that's how far back we were.
Oregon Trail, yeah.
Yeah, Oregon Trail.
That story.
So that's, led to some of our challenges as we're still bringing on the new system right now with our budgeting process. But alongside that, as you already mentioned, I worked with JTA, Jackson Transit Authority, on getting where we could see bus routes on Google Maps, and we could see a live tracker of where buses are. Because at the time, if you're waiting on the bus, you just have to call and figure out how long is it going to take to get here. And then when the bus arrives, your really only option is to pay exact change. Otherwise, if you can make it down to JTA's office and buy a bus pass, you could use a card. But at the time, it only took cash. So worked with them on making sure there was a cashless option through an app. Also worked with our building and codes department to bring their processes online, because it was all a paper process. So existing services, not introducing anything new, but just trying to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of city services. That's what innovation officers do. That's what innovation is. Later on, through grant opportunities, was able to grow our team. And so we have Claire, who manages our Neighborhood Academy program. Love that program. Big, huge plug for that program. Probably add that to the homework too, is sign up for Neighborhood Academy. Because it's a way for citizens to, just like through this podcast, learn more about the services of city government, so that they can hopefully go back and be an ambassador in their neighborhoods for their neighbors, so that when they have an issue, it's not, I don't know who to call. I'm going to call the mayor's office. I'm stuck. You have a specific department that you can reach out to, and you feel equipped and empowered to get your issue solved. And so Claire manages that, along with our public art initiative, which is really visible, tangible, and that's awesome to see that grow. We got Abby and Elvia managing our Love Your Block program, and they're hoping to grow that program with some other neighborhood services. My favorite thing right now is the mobile tool shed that they've introduced. That's going to be really innovative and help bring necessary equipment to people wanting to do cleanups and projects and things in their neighborhood, help their neighbors. And then, of course, Tyler, who was on a previous episode, our financial empowerment director. He's working on child savings accounts right now, which I think is going to be huge for our children in our public school system when they graduate, to already have some savings to put toward their next steps, among a lot of other wonderful things that he does to get people empowered and aware of their financial situation.
And again, the definition of innovation is something new or different being introduced. All of this that you've named is new. So you are a very necessary person to be. It's an inside joke. But yes, all jokes aside, you are a necessary person, and these ideas that you brought are innovative, and they are working. I've seen the work for each person on the team. So you mentioned that one of your definitions of it is listening to the needs of your neighbors. All these initiatives that you had, maybe some of them were on the top of your head, but the other way you were able to get some of these started is that you had to listen. And even if it's not verbally, you had to see, with my role, getting out, hey, sign up for this, sign up for that, take this survey. How important is it for you for people to actually not be afraid to tell government, city government, what it is that they need?
Oh yeah, that's critically important. I tell people all the time, if we're just sitting up here in our offices making decisions, implementing plans, without engaging with those who are affected by it, without engaging with our neighbors, it won't work. Some of the best plans that you think you have in your head, you try to put it into reality, you haven't gotten people's input, they don't want to use it. They don't have the belief and the trust in it. And so even if you are opening yourself up to criticism or pushback, or even if it's uncomfortable because you're hearing things that are hard to hear, that's going to go much farther way in being successful when people feel like they're bought into the process. people just want to be heard. That's what we learned through the pandemic. That's what we learned in city government every day. And I think that's the unique role of local government versus other levels of government, is direct access to the people. And so this is not, city employees or the mayor or city council, city hall. This is the people's city hall. And we've seen that through different events and things that we've had here. And I'm proud to see how our community engagement is growing, because I think that is so vital to the success of our work.
And we'll have Claire on to talk about a lot of the community development side of it. But yeah, it's almost like when people have a say, they have a more vested interest in it. Like say, I came up with this idea and I want it to go forward. Now that the city has taken my idea, I'm proud of this. I want to be a part of it. So that's kind of how it seems to me. Listening to the people, their needs. We're just here to help implement these ideas that they have, and we've done it. I mean, we'll have Abby on to talk about Love Your Block. It's an amazing initiative that started and continued. There's a story behind that, and it's oh my gosh, just how it's grown to what it is now, from being a part of a larger initiative to now taking it on as our own. Abby's done a great job, and you as team lead for them, I mean, you cultivated them to empower them to be what they're doing and do what they do and have a vested interest in the work that they're doing. So one of your passions, and we're gonna go deep into this, the homeless. So some might call you that you might have this white saviorism.
Ooh.
And yes, we're going to get into that. Who is this white girl coming in here trying to save all these people? They may confuse your passion with that. You have a passion for this. No matter who would be in this role of Chief Innovation Officer, whether it's white woman, black woman, white man, black man, when they have a passion for something, some might think that it's saviorism, but it's not. I wouldn't call it that. You just so happen to be a young white woman who has a passion for, as we should all believe, for the least of these, those who can't help themselves. You help. You are a helper, and I'm proud of you for that. But one of your passion projects is the new homeless shelter, the first homeless shelter in the city. It's gone through ups, it's gone through downs, it's gone through plateaus, it's gone through attempts to not do it, and finally at this point I think we're finally moving forward with it. So this passion project that you have for the homeless, because it's a big deal, not just in Jackson but across the nation, and we're doing something about it. So just kind of go through the process in a nutshell, because it's a long process. We could be here all day.
That's right.
Talking about the homeless shelter so from beginning, the listening to the needs of the people to where we are now. Kind of go through that process and take your time.
I appreciate it.
It's not like we're in black church. Take your time. But just kind of give us the process and where we are now.
Sure, yeah. I'd be glad to. Yep. So this has been one of our biggest projects over the last, really it's been ongoing for 3 years, so most of my tenure here at the city of Jackson. And I like to say that I don't save. That only one person that does that. I equip, and really people in these situations can only save themselves, and they have to take what is being given to them to equip them. But anyway, digressing. So in December 2020, unfortunately, we had an unhoused person who passed away from being exposed to the elements. This person did not qualify for other assistance programs maybe that were available. Not really sure, but for whatever reason, chose not to seek shelter. Shelter was not made available for him, and he passed away. And after that time, the mayor made it really clear, no more, not on his watch, not on my watch, and I firmly believe that as well. And so we were given a directive to try to figure out how to establish the city's first permanent men's homeless shelter. We have great programs that serve homeless folks, Tennessee Homeless Solutions, Area Relief Ministries. But there's limitations to those programs. Sometimes the funding's not there. Sometimes there are sort of restrictions that people can't meet to qualify, or, Area Relief has got room in the inn, which is a great partnership with churches, but it only happens for a few months out of the year. And we really need something that's year-round, permanent, night by night, not changing up every night which location, but somewhere stable for these guys to stay, to get services that they need to then hopefully re-enter back into society, stable, permanent housing, not being part of the system anymore. So over the last 3 years, we were able to get a couple of grants from HUD, which was originally part of some of the COVID relief funding. So it still has COVID restrictions because, different layers of government. Federal government sometimes moves at its own pace or stays in certain lanes that are a little bit challenging for us in local government to deal with, but we do our best. So those funds were made available to us, but it was to build a non-congregate shelter, so 1 man per room per bathroom. So that led to some challenges with the design process, but early on we brought on Amy McDonald as the operator through an RFP process. Tennessee Homeless Solutions was selected because we believe that involving someone who handles the day-to-day operations in the planning of the design of the shelter is going to make it more successful. I mean, otherwise we would just build what we think the people need, but having somebody who's in that field has been really vital. So Amy's worked with us, and we've had a team, Henson Construction, TLM, Housing Authority, West Tennessee Healthcare. It's been a team effort. It's been a committee. It hasn't just been Lauren Kirk, even though sometimes I get to be the spokesperson. But it really has been a community-involved process for 3 years. And I think because it's taken so long, folks have shifted in and out of the process and maybe, have lost sight of the end goal. But we've gone through 2 different redesigns over the past 3 years to try to meet those restrictions of the grant, make sure the facility has all that it needs to be successful, while also trying to stay as low cost of budget as possible. And I know that that's probably the hot topic right now. But all that to say, we made it through, went through 2 different bid processes, and if you're in construction, that's a feat in of itself. And in March, we got all of our bids back for concrete, electrical, masonry. I think I'm becoming role-versed in construction at this point. And we're presented a guaranteed maximum price to the city council in May. I was out of the country then, but that was presented by the contractor and was approved by city council. So at this point, we're just waiting for approval on the budget, and contractor is ready to go. And so once we have that budget in place, we'll get started. I believe the previous timeline was if they started this month, it should be finished by February or March. I'm hoping we can still meet that timeline, and I'm hoping we can actually make it a little bit earlier because I don't really want to go through another winter without dedicated permanent shelter. But that's a little bit about why we got into this work and where we're at, and hopeful to see it through to completion.
I'm very hopeful, and I believe that we'll get to completion. And as city government, there are a lot of questions about why is the city going to operate a homeless shelter, this, that, and the other. But there's more to it. This city, we're just, like you said, equipping, making the necessary access to be able to have it. Tennessee Homeless Solutions will be operating. Is that right?
That's right.
So the city has a responsibility to make sure the people who are living here are living well. Roads, trash, things like that. For this particular subject, there may be people asking, again, why does the city care about the homeless? And then there are those who may work for the city and wonder, well, what's anybody else doing for it? So talk about, if you don't mind, like the city's responsibility versus any other organization who, focuses on the need for others, such as those unhoused.
Yeah, well, I'd love to. So I think we could talk all day about different philosophies around the role of government, and the different people have different beliefs about that. But, government exists to balance private interest and public welfare. And so sometimes that balance gets a little bit delicate because we want to make sure that we protect people's constitutional rights, private property rights, all those kind of things. but also sometimes we have to regulate to make sure that the entire community is not affected by the actions of a private person. And so our responsibility is public safety, public welfare, and not having a men's homeless shelter is a direct threat to public safety and public welfare. It just is. And so, while we are hopeful and glad to support the actions of other entities, nonprofit entities, churches, private businesses who want to get involved in this issue, want to bring something to the table to address it. At the time, no one was really stepping up or had the resources like we did through this grant to be able to say, okay, we can make a difference here. And so that's why we chose to take it on, because, contrary to maybe some other beliefs or philosophies, like this isn't an action that's anti-economic development. It's actually an investment that's going to lead to economic development, because we're trying to empower our neighbors who are downtrodden for whatever reason to be equipped with the resources that they need to get back into being successful citizens. So, yeah, I think, we just try to be a good partner in the work, and on both sides sometimes there's misunderstanding. Is the city just for businesses? Is the city just for nonprofits? The city doesn't understand us. What's the city going to do? Why is the city doing this? And you can't make anybody happy. Some people want the city to do more, some people want the city to do less, but I think if we stick to our mandate of our role is to protect and promote public safety, public welfare, and this falls in line with that, then that's why we're showing up to the table.
And it's a table that it's not just the city. It's, like you said, listening to the needs of our neighbors. There are people there might be some who are afraid to give their ideas. There may be some unhoused who want to give, hey, we need this, but they're, afraid. So they'll do it silently. But we're actually listening to them to figure out what it is that they need. And again, this homeless shelter, it's a men's homeless shelter. A lot of people ask, about, what about the women? And I'm not saying that as, in a negative connotation, but men's homeless shelter versus women's homeless shelters, or all the women's organizations that help and cater to women. Why is it important? I think you mentioned it, that it's a men's homeless shelter here in the city of Jackson.
Yep. So we are fortunate in the city of Jackson that we have great programs that already are fulfilling the needs of women and children. And I actually participate in now the weekly continuum of care calls that go over by name, case by case. And the data is there that more often than not, the need is with the men. Because when women are in need, we've got programs. We've got the Dream Center, Scarlet Rope, Care Center. Dream Center just expanded and has a new facility that has 80 beds. Like they've stepped up to the plate to meet that need, and that's awesome. And we want to support that. But not having a dedicated space for men who represent majority of our homeless population is a huge problem. And unfortunately, there just haven't been the resources there to meet that need adequately until now.
And the numbers are there. You're not just doing this off the top of your head. Y'all are going out doing the research, getting the data. Those numbers mean a lot. I think a famous rapper once said, men and women lie, but numbers don't. And we see the numbers. And this is how you all, as that continuum group of care, is able to make these needs a reality. Talk about the location of the homeless shelter, where it's planned to be built, and why that area was picked versus somewhere else.
Yeah. So we looked at a couple different sites, mostly all downtown, because downtown is the heart of our city. It's the core. You look not even just around the country, but around the world. That's where a lot of things are concentrated for a reason. And so when we were listening to the needs of business owners, listening to the needs of social service providers, one thing that kept coming up was having services concentrated. That doesn't mean that these folks are, in a compound isolated from everyone else. That doesn't make a healthy, program or community. But it just means it cuts down on distance that someone might have to travel to get what they need. And with that distance cut down, they're more likely to get what they need. Because if you think about, oh man, I got to walk or hitchhike or whatever across town to get food, to get, job applications, whatever, it's harder to make that happen. But when it's right there, accessible to me, that's going to be more successful. So when we were looking at locations, we thought locating it near RIFA would be our best bet, because RIFA has done an amazing job and continues to, of meeting the needs of these populations through food access. They've expanded their facility recently, and they're pretty invested with where they're at. And so we felt like trying to find a site near them so that they could cover the meal needs of the shelter, since it won't have a commercial kitchen. And if we are housing, clothing, training, supporting, counseling at the shelter, and they're getting fed at RIFA, that's a great partnership. So we were able to work with the CRA to acquire a couple lots off McCory Street, which is right by McMillan Towers. And that also plays a piece in this puzzle now, because Jackson Housing Authority is partner in this planning effort, and is invested in the work of the shelter, and they're looking at what are some future plans for McMillan Towers, so that could be a next step, permanent supportive housing, and these things can work together instead of working in isolation. So yeah, it's our goal for by concentrating these services here, to not condemn any area of town, but really just embed them in the community, make them work well together, just like Aspel does. They have a campus downtown, and they're embedded in a neighborhood, and their program works well. And so I think that is an important part of social work and planning, is to see that things can't exist in isolation.
So your degrees are not just pieces of paper. Social work and planning, and that together makes innovation, because you're bringing something new and different to the city of Jackson. Of course, homeless, it's not the only thing. You are doing a whole lot with the innovation team, Love Your Block, Neighborhood Services, community development, financial empowerment. But this homeless thing, of course, it's a passion for you. And when you have a passion for something, you kind of work a little bit harder for it. But again, you do so much more. It's not just about homeless. And I'm happy that I was able to talk to you about all the things that you have. So Lauren, thank you for coming on. And again, Lauren Kirk has, I think other than the mayor, we've been up here in the city mayor's office area since like the start. Before COVID, during the time where our mayor sat in the office with his phone by himself talking about public art. He tells that story all the time. We don't leave him alone by himself much anymore, because the story behind that is he made a post and told people to reach out to Lauren Kirk. And Lauren Kirk got all the emails. So innovation, where we are now, it's we've progressed. And I say that just as the word is for the city. We've progressed in a lot going on in these last 5 years, and continue to hope and believe that we're going to do more. So Lauren Kirk, thank you.
Thank you,
for
Kenny.
coming on. Great interview, great talking to you about all the things that you got going on. But now what we do, since this is education, we have what I like to call pop quiz. Pop quiz is just 3 questions. It's not really a quiz. It's just 3 questions to get to know the person. So we hit some hard topics. Let's have a little fun. Let's hit some cooler topics. So pop quiz question number 1. Lauren Kirk is a world traveler. Lauren Kirk has been all over the place. She's got flags and passports from almost everywhere in the world. So of the countries that you have visited, what is your favorite and why?
I think I'm going to have to say Portugal. So I went to Spain and Portugal recently to hike the Camino de Santiago for my 30th birthday. Big bucket list thing for me that I was like, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to make it happen now. Both countries were so beautiful. Spent most of my time in Spain, but there's just something about the Portuguese people. They're so hospitable, so beautiful, just amazing culture, very vibrant, very relaxed. And I've got some special friends from Portugal now who actually helped me finish my hike. And so I think Portugal will always have a special place in my heart.
Portugal, I mean, it's, of course, it was here before we were here in the United States. So I can only imagine all the historic buildings. And in Portugal, like, is there a certain area that you remember that will always be embedded in your mind?
So actually, it is the oldest country in Europe too, and it's got the westernmost point of Europe. So I know this is like an educational podcast, so fun
There you
facts
go.
galore. But yeah, Porto itself is the city that we were in, and just being along the Douro River, seeing the bridge, just drinking wine along the Douro River, honestly, is what stands out to me with all of the orange tile roofs and bright colors and happy people.
Wow. Bright colors and happy people. Maybe we need some more bright colors and happy people here. I'll take it. So, pop quiz question number 2. Lauren Kirk is also an outdoors woman. She loves hiking. So, what to you is the best hiking trail in the state of Tennessee?
That's such a tough question. My favorite, I think, is the loop at Savage Gulf State Park, which actually used to be part of South Cumberland State Park, and it split off because South Cumberland's in 2 different sections, and so this section is over by Greeter Falls, which is one of my favorite waterfalls in the state, and I've hiked this trail probably the most. I love it because I think it truly represents a meditative journey. You start up on the bluff and you descend down. You walk along the river for a while, and then you re-ascend and re-emerge. And so to me, when I think about it, it's a very metaphorical trail, but it's also literally just a great trail. It's a 9-mile loop, and I like to do it about once a year.
9 miles?
9 miles, yeah. Hey, I hiked 74 a few weeks ago, so.
Look, you can catch me doing half-mile sprints, and I'm done. I may walk a little longer, but that's a lot. But you said the Portugal Trail, 74 miles?
74 miles altogether, yep.
All right, so we're from Memphis. We're at Jackson starts at exit 79-ish, 76-ish. So you walked from Jackson to Memphis.
Yep, that's what I said at the end of it. I was like,
gosh.
I walked from Jackson to Memphis.
Wow. Big ups to you for that kind of thing. Again, give me my half-mile sprints. I'll sit down after that. Number 3, pop quiz question number 3. You wake up in the morning, and a cup of coffee is what you need to get your day started. What is your go-to flavor cup? What is your go-to coffee? What's in it? What kind? What's your go-to?
I keep it real basic. Coffee Black, which also Coffee Black's one of my favorite Memphis brands. If you don't follow them, follow them. They're Maurice and Renata are amazing people, and they're doing amazing work in Memphis around coffee and bringing it back to the people. But yeah, I just have a cup of black coffee. Usually I'll get the drip from Turntable, so plug for them too. But I keep it simple.
Look, black coffee. So my story behind black coffee, when I worked for the Jackson Sun, one of my coworkers, Jordan Bowie, he used to drink black coffee. I used to be like, dude, how do you do that? He was like, well, when you put cream and sugar, it turns into glorified chocolate milk. It's like, okay. So I tried black coffee by itself. It's what people joke, bean soup. It's just bean water. So I need to add just a little bit, but my little bit that I add is honey. So it's black coffee and honey. That's it. I don't need all the flavors. I will if I, go to a local coffee restaurant. But black coffee, it's amazing. I highly suggest it. I'm not a big coffee drinker, but when I do, and if I go out to eat, black coffee and honey. So big plug to Coffee Black and Turntable. So great answers to all those questions. World traveler, Tennessee hiker, coffee drinker, the Lauren Kirk. Thank you, Lauren, for coming on to lesson 10 of East Main 101.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. We'll have you on later on. Maybe once this homeless shelter is built, we'll talk about more of it. Again, Lauren Kirk, thank you for coming on. So, as you all know, this is East Main 101, and there is homework. At first, how teachers do. They think you don't need any homework. But I got some homework for you. So, 2 things, actually. The first one is just do something for someone else. Be kind. Say hello. Just do something for someone else. And your second piece of homework, visit our website, jacksontn.gov, and click the Projects and Initiatives tab under the Government tab in the Mayor's office. A whole lot of different initiatives that we talked about here and that you can read about, from Neighborhood Academy to Love Your Block to we've had Tyler from Office of Financial Empowerment, Public Art. It's a whole lot of different things going on, innovative here in the city of Jackson. Again, thank you, Lauren Kirk, for coming on East Main 101 Lesson 10. That'll do it for this lesson, Lesson 10 of East Main 101. Don't forget to follow us on all of our social media channels, from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, etc., etc. You can see the list here on the screen. Be sure to follow us and subscribe to East Main 101. Visit our website, eastmain101.jacksontn.gov. There you can find past lessons as well as links to subscribe to YouTube or our Spotify pages. Thank you again for joining us. Until next week, class dismissed.